It's time, everyone. I've been wanting to do this uploaded deck list for the longest time now. Today I have for you guys my updated Battlemage deck tech. So Battlemage, it's a pretty cool dude. He has 3 power stats, and he's the only avatar with that many stats. Reason being is, I assume it's because his effect is going to be relevant for that. Whenever Battlemage attacks and kills an enemy, you may draw a card, or draw a spell, sorry. Pretty good. Some things about Battlemage, you have to declare an attack with this card, and it also has to kill an enemy, so you can draw a spell. Few things about this: if this kills multiple minions at the same time, you still only draw one spell. And of course, you have to declare an attack. You can't use Grapple Shot or anything to weasel this card into attacking. And yeah, so the whole premise of this deck is just to use this Battlemage to claim victory. Enough said about that. We're going to go into the artifacts. So for just our mana ramp, we have the Philosopher Stone, Amethyst Core, and Onyx Core. I actually went down an element. I was originally playing fire in this deck, but I cut that out completely, and I felt like this deck has been way more consistent because of that. I got a few neat little toys for this Battlemage. So we have our weapons here and other equipments. So we have Poisonous Dagger. The bearer has lethal, and this is crazy because the thing about when you combat with Battlemage is anytime he's attacking, he's probably more than likely going to receive damage back if your opponent's minion at least has some power or toughness to them. But with a Poisonous Dagger, this is just going to guarantee that you just kill the minion. Sure, you're going to take damage when attacking, but the whole point is to be able to just completely kill whatever minion he's attacking. I have Truesight Crossbow. This card is actually really good. I only played at 1, but it gives the bearer ranged and the ability to target stealth units. So that's just really good. If your opponent has some stealth units nearby, you can potentially tap the Battlemage to use his ranged attack to kill the minion. Or, of course, it's really good for shooting down airborne minions if they're nearby. Pretty good stuff. We have the Screaming Skull, probably the best card to use with Battlemage. So whenever the bearer attacks and kills an enemy, it untaps. So that's really good because the Battlemage kills a minion, you get to draw with his effect, and also with the Screaming Skull, you get to untap him. And if there's another minion nearby, you can just go ahead and attack and kill that minion. But when you do that, this will untap it again, which is so cool. And that means that, you can do whatever you want afterwards. If there's, God forbid, another minion nearby, you can go ahead and kill that and draw an extra card. Or you can just tap the Battlemage to play a sight or draw a sight. There's lots of things that you can do with this. And the Screaming Skull allows him to just have a lot of vigilance. So this is one of my favorite additions to the deck. 7 League Boots, giving the bearer movement plus 7. So Battlemage can already move 1 pace, but with this, now he can move up to 8 spaces? That's crazy. It's actually insane. I can get away from my opponent's avatar if I'm too close, or I can contest any other minion in the realm and more than likely kill it. Really strong equipment there. We have Crown of the Victor. The bearer has +3 power, and if they get +3 power if they've killed a minion previously, and that's really good because +3 power with a Battlemage, that's 6 power, and I mean, the Poisonous Daggers are already, excessive, but having the Crown with the Victor with the Battlemage is great because now he can deal 6 damage. If he's near an opposing avatar, dealing 6 damage to them is just going to be insane. We have 2 Flaming Sword. The bearer has +1 power, and it strikes splash full damage to each other enemy at strike unit's location. From my understanding, how this card works is that when you strike a unit at a location, this will also splash damage to all other units at that location, potentially killing multiple minions. However, of course, with the Battlemage, you're only supposed to draw one anytime it kills a minion at that time. This is just really good to just completely like board sweep our opponent, and especially with the Flaming Sword and a Poisonous Dagger, it's just going to be lethal damage no matter what. Pretty good stuff. Going into our minions, we have 4 Men of Leng. Whenever this card strikes an avatar, they discard a random card. I used to think that if this card strikes a site, they discard a card, but that's not correct. You have to specifically attack an avatar in order for them to discard a card, which is actually okay. Being able to play multiple of these and have 4 of them in a deck is still kind of insane, and I feel like this card really makes Battlemage very efficient. Because again, if you're drawing cards with the Battlemage, killing all their minions with the Battlemage, and they're focused on the Battlemage, they're not going to be really focused on this Men of Leng, and if it's too close to them, it's going to deal damage to them, and they're going to discard cards. So while you're drawing cards and they're discarding cards, you're progressing the game, and that's where I feel like the mistake of this card is, I feel like this card's a mistake for the game, but only time will tell. We have 4 Spectral Stalker, playing some Void Walk in here, being able to just cast this on a Void nearby our opponent's minion and just being able to deal damage to them as quickly as we can is very efficient. The Battlemage is supposed to be the win condition of the deck, but these small little minions, if our opponent isn't focused on them, more than likely they're going to steal the game for us. And that's really what we want. We have 3 Phase Assassin, also Void Walk, 3 power, and whenever it enters the Void, he gains stealth. So one thing that I'm not sure about this, and I actually would like some help with this if someone can explain this part for me. From my understanding, whenever this card attacks, it loses stealth. And I heard that it loses stealth permanently, but if it re-enters the Void, does it gain stealth? I assume that's how Phase Assassin works. However, I'd like some clarification on that. That's the only thing I don't understand about this card. But regardless, for 3 mana, having a Void Walk minion with 3 power can put pressure on the opponent. And of course, having stealth, it makes it really hard for your opponent to target it. Have 2 Gyre Hippogriffs. I used to play 3, but I feel like 2 is enough. We're playing these low balanced curve mana cards, and that if we're playing something like this, usually when we play it, we win the game, or usually when we play it, we're at that point where your opponent's on death's door. So you could potentially end the game with this too if it's nearby that avatar, and if they're on death's door, you could just swing immediately because it has the ability charge. And it's also airborne, so it can attack diagonally, and it's really hard for your opponent to intercept this. If you wanted to play 3, you could, but I feel like 2 is just like a really well-balanced number. And that's really it for the minions. Again, our essential strategy is to soup up the Battlemage, kill minions, draw cards, and use our minions to just kind of finish off the game with just little bits of damage. Going into our magics, I play 4 Overpower. I still think that this card's overpowered. 1 mana giving an ally plus 2 power this turn is just insane. If Battlemage has the Crown of the Victor, and if it already gets his buff and it's at 6, and if I'm attacking an opponent's avatar, if I use Overpower beforehand, it's going to get plus 2 power, and that is a grand total of 8 damage. That's really strong, especially when you've already souped it up on your previous turns. Drawing this just to be able to give it the 8 power is just crazy. And of course, if you draw multiples, it's going to be backbreaking because you can just soup up your other minions as well. Play 4 Lightning Bolt. Enough said about this card. It's going to deal 3 damage, more than likely finish off the game if our opponent's avatar is the only unit at that targeted location. And yeah, it could be a pretty good removal spell as well. It just basically does everything for this deck. Play 4 Blink. Blink's really good. So for 2 mana, you get to draw a card, but you also get to teleport an ally to a location it's nearby. This is just really good for the Battlemage to get closer to whatever minion he's trying to kill so we can draw an additional card. Or, of course, we can teleport the Battlemage closer to our opponent's avatar. Or, in dire situations, we can make the Battlemage or any of our minions pull back and get away from other minions or other threats that our opponent's throwing at us. For the last magic, we have 4 Grapple Shots. So, with Grapple Shot, this is just like an insane card. I'm not even gonna lie. Being able to shoot a projectile, if it hits a unit, the allies drag to that location and it may strike the hit unit. One thing about this card, and I thought originally this is how this worked, because I thought Battlemage just had to kill a minion to draw a spell, so I put Grapple Shot in, you know, assuming that this was going to take out a minion and draw a card. That's not the case. Battlemage has to specifically attack, and that attack has to be declared by the player. So Grapple Shot skips that effect. It just says that it could just strike and hit the unit. That is okay, though, because if we're using Grapple Shot, and if this is just going to kill a minion regardless, I don't really care if I'm drawing the card, because usually if I'm playing this, the Battlemage is untapped, and after I use the Grapple Shot and strike a unit, I can use the Battlemage then to make its initial attack, and if there's a nearby minion, then I can use it to kill it and draw a spell. But Grapple Shot is in here just to close distance, as you can obviously tell, and it could be very useful for finishing off the game for any of your minions that are nearby an opposing avatar. And yeah, it's a very strong card. I used to think that this card was not that great, but it's humbled me, and I think that if you're playing an aggro or attack-oriented deck, you really want to play Grapple Shot. So that's it for the main deck. Now we're just going into the Atlas. So I have the Color Out of Space, really good because a lot of people say like this card isn't as good because of its downside, but I want to thoroughly explain this card right here. So it provides one of each threshold, and its effect says this provides no mana or threshold if it's not adjacent to the void. So essentially, if it's around the void, you get the full effect. You get 1 mana and you get one of each threshold. But if it's not near the void, you won't get that. However, there's a neat little combo that guarantees that you'll always have that. And that's with this, Smokestacks of Gnaak. So other nearby sites lose their abilities. So if this is the first site that you played and this is the second one on it, since this is nearby the smokestacks, this actually loses that ability. So what that means is that it's a counterintuitive reverse effect, meaning that you will always have the mana and you'll always have the threshold, as long as the smokestacks is negating its negative effect. It's pretty sweet. I actually really like using that, and you don't need all 4 thresholds, but if you're playing smokestacks, you may as well just play Color Out of Space, because that just makes it to where no matter what you're playing, your threshold's going to be very efficient. We have Mirror Realm. Of course, Mirror Realm's just so good. Just being able to copy a nearby site when it comes in play. 2 Sinkhole. I've gone over this card. It's so broken. Being able to just provide mana because it's a land, and also being able to sacrifice it to destroy a nearby site can be very disruptive towards our opponent. And if they're not careful, you can potentially win the game off Sinkhole. I've done it countless times. If you guys still don't believe me, just play it. Play it, and I promise you at some point, you're probably going to have your opponent scoop to a Sinkhole. You have 2 Observatory. Genesis, when it comes in play, you look at the next 3 spells, and you get to put them back in any order. It's pretty good. Just being able to determine what cards you're going to draw and have that control is really good, especially in this deck, because most of the time you just need just a little extra push, whether if it's damage, a minion, or if it's just an equipment, and the Observatory just helps fix your draws. Same with Crossroads. I wouldn't play 2 Crossroads, I only just play the 1, but it does almost the same thing as Observatory, but just with sites. So Genesis, look at your next 4 sites, you put 3 on the bottom, and then 1 on top. So you're just going to guarantee that whichever one that you want is going to be the next one you draw, and the rest will go on the bottom. It's pretty good. It does not provide threshold. That's the only reason why I wouldn't play 2. Whereas the Observatory actually provides air threshold. But yeah, Crossroads is pretty good as well. I have faith that just the 1 will be beneficial. I have 1 Rift Valley. This card's pretty interesting because essentially, if you have 2 of your sites, or potentially you can have your opponent's site there and your site there, whichever, you pull apart and make a void in between, and then you'll play Rift Valley in that section. This could be pretty good because, so for an example, I have these 4 sites here, right? My opponent has a minion at this location, or rather, let's say they have a minion at our location. And what I'll do is I'll separate my sites here to play the Rift Valley there. And that could be really good because, let's say, for example, my Battlemage is over here at this location. I can use it to now attack my opponent's minion. That's really the only reason why Rift Valley's in there. It's just so you can have a little manipulation to where the Battlemage can get closer towards a minion. And also it provides the earth threshold that we needed. So Rift Valley is pretty good. You don't have to play it, but I found out that most of the time whenever I play it, it kind of helps me out. I play 1 Battlefield. This one was actually recommended to me, and I didn't know that this was I knew about the artwork. I thought it was familiar to me, but I just never knew that this card had this ability. Genesis, conjure a broken weapon or armor at this location. So that's pretty good because if your opponent has broke some of your weapons, you can just revive them at that location. That's pretty good. So we have 3 Windmill, the dual site for both of our elements. We have air and earth. Enough said about that. Playing 3 Dark Tower, being able to aggro out our artifacts is very crucial. We want to be able to soup up the Battlemage as much as we possibly can, and these allow us to do that. So they each have the same effect, just replacing their name subtext. So Genesis, if this is the only tower you control, you gain 1 mana this turn. And that's why I play 1 of each, because this, of course, you have to have only 1 Gothic Tower in play to get its effect. You have to have 1 Lone Tower, Dark Tower, etc. But if you play multiples, and if you have a Gothic Tower and you draw another Gothic Tower, you wouldn't be able to get the extra mana with its effect. However, with Lone Tower, since it's the only Lone Tower in play, you would get the effect, even though you have a Gothic Tower there. And yeah, I feel like having 1 copy of each is very important. Don't play multiples because you just won't get its benefit if you do have multiples in play. Lastly, we just have 4 sites here. So we have 2 Humble Village, 1 Rustic Village, and 1 Simple Village. These all doing the same effect. Essentially, they have Genesis, and you can pay 1 mana to summon a Foot Soldier token at that location. The Foot Soldier is a 1/1 token, and yes, you can pay the 1 mana as this comes in play. So when this enters play, it generates the 1 mana. You can spend that generated mana to make a token. It's pretty good. That just allows you for certain turns, if you can't play anything, if you have these, you may as well just spend the mana just to make a body in play. And having those little extra bodies goes a long way in terms of finishing off the game. And that's why we have 4 copies of the villages. You could play more. I feel like 4 is enough. I feel like even 3 is enough, but I wanted the extra one just so I can get an extra earth threshold and also to get extra bodies in play. So that's it for the Battlemage deck. This deck is insane. It's really strong. I have difficulties playing up against this deck, and I would say the one rule of thumb, this is going to be more than likely a deck that you'll face up against in tournaments whenever that time comes. So be prepared to see this guy a lot. I would say be confident, though, if you're playing up against it. Yes, it's a fast deck. Yes, it's very aggressive. But Battlemage's weakness is in himself, because he has to attack minions and he has to kill them. But when he attacks minions, he also receives the damage when he attacks. So that could be an opportunity for you to win against it as well, because once he loses a lot of life, you should be able to put him on death's door fairly fast. But you know, also be wary because this card's really strong, and these really powerful equipments just make this deck insane. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I explained some of that thoroughly. And yeah, stay tuned for the next one, guys. Have a good one.